You are live. I am live. I am alive. It is live. You are live. We are live. Happy 2020. Holy smokes. Can you believe it? Um, how's it going, everybody? Comic Crack here with you. I couldn't resist. Um, I've got a box beside me, and it's filled with so much good shit. I realized I never did an end of the year and kind of collecting goals for 2020. Um, and I think that's partially because I don't know if I have any collecting goals live. That's true, 64-page special. It wouldn't be a live broadcast without you. Um, I realize it's because I don't really have any goals that I can think of for this year. The goals that I've had in previous years that I've pretty much tackled, it's it's interesting looking back at kind of, when you end up documenting stuff like this, you can see it's nice to get a snapshot of everything that you've done throughout the years. And my collecting and reading habits have drastically changed since I started this channel. What, like, I don't know, let's see, my daughter is 6 years old. So have I been doing this for 7 fucking years? No, it can't be. It's got to be something like that, right? Wow. Um, I don't remember exactly when I started, but anyway, it's been longer than 6 years. Let's put it that way. Um, the way that I've collected, the things that I'm reading, the changes that have happened just with my kind of comic world have been extreme. And I feel like they're really just in a completely different place now than they were even 3 years ago. There's still some things I'm focused mildly on. I'm still looking to complete that Daredevil run for sure. I'm still looking to complete that Doctor Strange run for sure. Um, or as much of the Doctor Strange run as I want to complete, which right now is down to I just need Volume 1, Doctor Strange, number 169. I have everything else. I mean, eventually I am tackling the Strange Tales piece by piece, but those have to be a pretty cheap and in pretty rough shape for me to pick them up for the most part. Um, so I mean, I guess those are always kind of minor goals. It's just I feel like this year I've gotten into a lot more of the history of comics, and I've gotten into more underground stuff, and I've gotten into more comics journal and writings about comics, and then even more recently within the past month or so getting into specific artists and then the fanzine world, which is kind of the things that are exciting me right now, with the odd new comic thrown in here and there. So I don't think I have really a 2020 top 10 list to any degree. Um, so we'll just leave it at that. In the world of getting rid of things and in the kind of vein of finding things that are really exciting to me, this box of comics that I have here beside me and magazines and books and things are the things that are really exciting me. I sat with this for, I don't know, a couple of hours this afternoon and just kind of went piece by piece. I haven't started reading anything in depth yet, but I did want to talk about it and just kind of show off the things. The creation of this particular channel here, this cartoonist kayfabe, has been something that's been incredible, um, mainly because of that perspective. There's the Read More comics where they're talking about Miracle Man, and it's interesting hearing the perspective on these series from people who create comics. It just gives you a different angle. When they do mail calls, when they're talking about stuff, putting stuff under the microscope from their collections, it's an opportunity to get a sense of things in a little more depth that I'm some that I'm not familiar with at all, and other things that I'm just familiar with by title, and don't know much else about it. So I've had a couple of, just kind of boxes, not short boxes or anything, but a couple of kind of packing boxes filled with some random things, comics, hardcovers, etc., graphic novels, that sort of thing, that I've just tried to sell here and there. Nothing has really moved, which is fine. Um, and I've been dealing with Greg Harder, the infamous Winnipeg legend Greg Harder, uh, for the past number of months now, buying stuff from him. I was getting Comics Journal, etc. I asked him one day if he did trades, and he's like, absolutely. I love to do trades. I'm like, great, because I have got some stuff for you. And I just brought everything to him. He took the lot of it. He took he kind of went through it piece by piece, came up with a price for me. I think after some things had been settled, I think I still had $175 or something in trade value with him, um, which is a phenomenal amount. And I didn't have anything at the forefront of my mind when I was going through these zines. It's like, hey, why don't I'll reach out to Greg to see if he has kind of a storage of some zines, some fan zines from the 70s. He didn't have much, but he sent me a new list that I've never seen before, which was kind of focused on graphic novels, magazines, etc. And in that one list, there were so many great things. A couple that unfortunately he couldn't find at this moment. One that he couldn't find that I was really bummed about was Women in Comics, the Trina Robbins, Cat Ironwood book that came out a number of years ago. I don't know if it was 90s or late 80s. I'm not exactly sure, but focusing on the history of comics and the women that were involved in the creation, in making comics throughout history. I that one has been on my list, like at the top of my kind of mental want list for a very long time. So when I saw it in that particular list from Greg, that was the number one thing that hit my. If you still have this, or if you can still find this, I would love that. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to find it. He's still sorting through magazines and that sort of thing, so he's going to send me updated lists when they come. So most everything else that I had requested, he found. I went to see him today at Mulvey, which is one of the two flea markets in town. And he kind of gave me a stack of stuff. He's like, "Yeah, so have a look and let me know what it is that you want." I'm like, "Well, this is everything that you could find that was on my list." He's like, "Yeah." I said, "Well, it's guaranteed that I want it all. So let's just let's just take the lot." I have all this trade. I think it ended up costing me another $30 on top of my credit, which was perfect. Getting this big box of fucking fantastic shit for $30 basically is exactly where I want to be at this stage of my collecting. Um, because we're in a point right now where there's shit all on top of boxes, and it's driving me a little nuts. I feel like I'm growing a little outside of the limitations that I'd set on myself. So I think that it's time for me to take another hard look at some things and possibly get rid of some stuff. I really don't want it to be me having to rent out a warehouse space to store this stuff. I don't want my collecting to get like that. I want to have a collection, as I've mentioned millions of times on this channel, that I enjoy, that I read, that's not just there for the sake of having it. Yes, I do understand that there's always that potential of you get rid of some stuff and 5 years from now you end up buying some of it back. I realize that, but I don't want to be at this level. I want to be a little more contained, and I want stuff that I love, that I genuinely just get enjoyment out of. So, enough said about that. Let's get into what I grabbed. Um, I tell you, man, like having a resource like this in town is truly fucking incredible. I look at these lists that he sends me, and they're chock full of stuff that I just salivate on. It makes it difficult to pare down. One of the other first thing, Happy New Year to you too, architectural foam panels and columns. Trying to slim down your own collection. Yeah, I hear you. If you don't mind me asking, what are you sitting at? Do you have an app? Do you have something that's kind of keeping count for you? What's your collection sitting at? What's a number? Um, After the women in comics, the next thing that kind of hit the list was this. He only had a few. I ended up getting a double accidentally, but that's okay. I know that these are somewhat sought after depending on what circles you run in, so I can use that as kind of trade bait. This is Taboo issue number 1 from Bissett. Who else do we have in here? Where did I put the glasses? Right here. Clive Barker, Stephen Bissett, S. Clay Wilson, Alan Moore, and Bill Ray, probably. Charles Vess, Charles Burns, Bernie Moreau, Butterworth and Kennedy, Lucas and Hoffman, Eddie Campbell, Bissett again, Giffen and Fleming, Chester Brown, oh, and Greg Irons, because this particular issue is dedicated to the memory of Greg Irons. 1947 to 1984. Outstanding. Yeah, and there we go. There's some Chester Brown right there at the end. There we go. 64-page special was kind enough to send me Taboo. And it's something that I just don't find that often. It's not one of those titles that you see when I go back issue diving, or when I go to mini conventions, or even when I go travel out of town and search comic shops. You just don't find this. You do not see this out there in the wild. So the fact that he had a few of these issues is really, really great. So issue number 1. There we go. There's some Charles Burns. Get some Charles Burns in there. Issue number 1. This is the extra thick issue number 4 with a Mobius cover, and then a Mobius, if you can see the insert there, we got a yellow section. What is it? The Cat's Eye? Is that what it's called? Eyes of the Cat. It's the Jodorowsky and Mobius Eyes of the Cat presented in a beautiful, never did a proper count, about 20 short boxes. That's still pretty sizable, because what are you looking at? 100, 150 per short box, in and around there, 125, depending on what you're packing them. So that's pretty sizable, man. And the thing that popped up after this, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful section. We had a couple of other Jodorowsky, and I didn't realize that he had worked with them now. Or maybe they just took, I haven't read through this. So Spain Rodriguez, well, it does credit Jodorowsky. Maybe it's because it talks about El Topo. So Spain Rodriguez did some El Topo strips, which is fucking amazing. These ones I had a quick look through because very minimal in the way of dialogue. And I mean, his work is ungoddamn believable anyway. So Spain Rodriguez doing a fucking El Topo strip. That's worth the price of admission alone. And then after that, we have S. Clay Wilson. There's absolutely a sense of his style here, but it's not as wild and out of control as the S. Clay Wilson that I'm used to. With really dense pages filled with pirates that are sucking each other's dicks and whatever else is going on, you know. So yeah, that was a really nice surprise. Really, really incredible. Really looking forward to flipping through these suckers, or reading these suckers in more detail. So that's number 4. This was the one that was a double, and I didn't totally realize it until I got home. Number 7, but like I said, it's totally fine. This one is they're all in beautiful shape. So now I have one to offer up as trade bait, basically. A color section in here. Sorry about that. Dumping the mic. Color insert in this one as well. And then finally for Taboo, the one-off special, the bottle of tequila on the front. There you go. Yeah, no, they're really, really incredible, these Taboo. Um, and like it is, like every time I deal with Greg, the stuff that he has for me and the stuff that I end up picking up from him, they're just in immaculate condition as well. Uh, I don't know if that's partially due to the fact that I'm picking up stuff from him that's kind of off the beaten path, where not a lot of hands have been on it to begin with. I got to say, the other thing that I've loved about dealing with Greg is when I went to see him today, and he's communicated back and forth in emails a couple of times with me. Um, the stuff that I've traded in with him, he's sat with and he's read. So we've had a brief chat online, and then when I went to see him, we talked a little more detail about some of the books that he's read, and just his impressions of some of the stuff. 100 Bullets, for example, is one of the things that really stood out to him that he enjoyed. Um, some of the European stuff that I had for him, which was very minimal, but there was a couple of things there. Just it's great to talk to someone who's also reading the stuff, and then it's in the bins afterwards, so he can sell it because that's what he does. But it's great to kind of sit and know that my stuff is going to someone who's not just immediately putting a price tag on it and putting it out on the floor to be sold. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's nice to be able to talk to him and know that he's reading it and enjoying it as well. As I'm sure, I mean, I hope he feels the same way. You know, I talked to him about, I've read most of the Corbin stuff at this point that I got from him last time and how much I enjoyed it. So it's great. Okay, so what do we got here? Let's so here's a comic. Let's use good old Misty again. Here's the size of this next piece. Speaking of Bissett, Stephen Bissett, this is issue number 1 of Bissett's Sojourn. And that size comparison, this is still folded in half. So what do we have here? There we go. There's the full. This is issue 1. He had issue 2 listed on that list as well, but it was another one that he couldn't find. I believe there was only 2 issues of this Sojourn, and on the Kayfabe channel, they do an in-depth look at these, and it's well worth watching that video. That's where I first heard of it. It's not a title that I was familiar with before that. I am so glad to have my hands on this, and one of the main reasons, I'm just going to put part of this down here. One of the main reasons is this right here. Can you see that shit? That is a Stephen Bissett poster, and from what I understand, it was going to be in the second issue. There was also a spread like that as well, and I think from what I remember their video saying was that it was basically a short story, and he was doing kind of his idea was to do one panel per issue. Now I don't know if the second issue is quite this size or not. I don't remember from the kayfabe video, but this is fucking beautiful. And if I'm remembering correctly, it's when he was at the Kubert school, I think, that this was created. And Joe Kubert is in here, as well as Sergio Aragones, of course, Bissett, Lee Elias, is that, yes, and then Dick Giordano and Doug Wildley. So this is, again, in just fucking beautiful shape. Um, Besides the Taboo, I think this is one of the absolute highlights from this box of comics that I got. There's a lot of exciting things in here, but there's some that are more exciting than others, and that one is on the top of that. On a quick aside, there was a local guy who had Derek, who had a bit of an auction on the Winnipeg Comic Addicts Facebook page. He's another one of the local guys who buys collections and kind of does auctions here and there. So I usually focus on the off the beaten path stuff, and he knows that. He's the same guy that I bought all the Mobius Blueberry stuff from, actually. So I won a couple of things from him. First 3 issues of Crossroads, which is Whisper and who is he? Is he the Badger? Whisper and Sable, Sable and Badger, Badger and Luthen Ironheart meet at the Crossroads. So each issue has a different creative team. There was 5 issues total. I think I have another one of these in the archives here somewhere. I don't remember which issue I have. So those were too cheap to pass up. And then another name that's come specifically from the Kayfabe channel. This is Tim Vigil is in this. This is issue 1 of Splatter. Not somebody I would gravitate towards regularly, but the price was right, and because I've heard talk about Tim Vigil, I couldn't pass it up. And then back to the Greg Harder stuff. Another one that jumped out at me. I'm piecing together the individual issues. I haven't sat and read anything yet. I'm waiting to get a nice big chunk of issues to be able to read a bunch at a time. This is going to give me that opportunity. It is volume 1 of Concrete, complete short stories from 1986 to 1989. I'm guessing that this would be stuff that might be collected from Dark Horse Presents. Dark Horse Presents. Let's just see. Yeah, the contents has every single. Yeah, it's all Dark Horse Presents stuff. If that's showing up there. So that's pretty exciting. Give me a chance to dive right in to some Concrete. I always hear really, really good things about this. Like I said, I pick up the issues when I can. It's one of those that's not the easiest to grab because it seems to be a lot of mini series. So it's hard sometimes to keep track of which ones I have and which ones I don't, even with the good old CLZ app. So this might be a great way to go. I'm really looking forward to reading this. I think that this is going to be something that's right at the top of my to-read pile. I never really got Tim Vigil. Might be schlocky enough to be fun. That was my thoughts as well, honestly, 64. I'd seen his stuff before. I'm blanking now on the series that he had. Yeah, I have that Earth Day 1990 special actually in single issue form, so I don't know if that's also included in here. What the hell is the Vigil series that he had? Anyway, I'd seen it before. I can't believe I'm blanking on it. They rave about it all the time. And it's one of those things that I don't think I normally would have picked it up. It's just that it gets so much exposure on their channel, and I see his art so much. I follow him now on Faust. Thank you. Yeah, very good. I follow him now on Instagram as well. There's a certain appeal to his style. It's not something I'm drawn to naturally, but like I said, the price was right for it, so I figured I'd give it a try. Earth Day. Yeah, it doesn't look like that one's in here, but yes, I do have that Earth Day special for sure, and I will check that out as well once I read that. Another thing that I don't know a lot about, but in my brief kind of dig online seemed intriguing enough. And flipping through it, it's really piqued my interest because every single strip is followed by a suggestion for a mixtape mostly based on years. So the mixtape of hits from 1962, 1965, and just gives you kind of a playlist of things you should listen to. Mad Peck Studios, a 20-year retrospective by the Mad Peck. The one thing that I am familiar with, because I have seen it in my digging for underground comics. Let's see, they did have a still of it in here. Here we go. The Mad Peck catalog of good stuff, 25 cents. I have seen that around in a few kind of magazines and books and online when I do some underground comic digging. So basically, what we have is we have each page has a strip. I'm guessing that these were published in various underground newspapers. And then, as here, the Max Marvel's tape hits for 1962, and then kind of a playlist, tape recipes here as well too. Looks like a lot of fun. Um, People like Chubby Checker, the Marvelettes, Isley Brothers, Neil Sedaka, etc. A lot of names that I recognize, but there are some names that I don't, like Bruce Channel, Solomon Burke. I don't recognize those names. Dupree's, maybe. Mary Wells, no idea. So that might be a fun read for sure. It's another sample of that. And again, in fucking impeccable, beautiful condition. In the world of fanzines, something that's come up for us when I was looking through when we were focusing on the fanzines recently, there was some ads for the Menominee Falls. I thought it was the Gazette, but it's the Menominee Falls Guardian at this point. This is from December 1973. He has quite a few of these. I figured I'd just give one a try. No rhyme or reason why I picked this one. I just picked this one. So, and it's basically just reproductions or reprints. Let's just open this sucker up. Again, we have a oh, Gore Vidal, Happy New Year, CK, and oh no, it's 64-page special. Gore Vidal, how the heck are you, man? Really, really great to see you. Menominee Falls Guardian. So just reprints of some strips. What did we have? I think there was, yeah, here we go, Tumbleweeds, which I was a big fan of. I had some of the books. So on a real cursory flip through this, there's nothing horribly wrong with this. Is it something that's right up my alley? Not necessarily, but I had to give one a try just to see what all the fuss was about in our zine reading and why people were so kind of gung-ho about collecting these. I imagine, though, at the time, a lot of the stuff that's contained in this wasn't really readily available. But at this point in 2020, oh, goddamn tape, hey? At this point in 2020, it's not as difficult to find kind of collections of a lot of those strips that are in there. But anyway, there we go. We gave it a shot. And again, when it's trade and I'm not paying anything for it, I'm glad to do it. Again, on the fanzine side, Rocket Blast's Comic Collector. This is a Don Rosa swipe of Vaughn Bodie piece on the front cover of this one. I believe these were the only two, or did he have a few more of these? I don't remember how many of these he had. We'll have a quick look through this. There we go. Vaughn Bodie, 1941 to 1975, photo on the back cover. I have one other of this Rockets Blast Comic Collector. What do we got? Maybe these will be a little bit of a focus video as well too, when we continue our offshoot of looking at fanzines. There we go. There's a little right up. Greetings from Texas. It's probably due to where I live, but those fanzines are non-existent here. Yeah, I mean, it's not like I find them in abundance here, to be honest with you, uh, Gorvidal. I just, out of the stuff that he had on this magazine list, I was really hoping, because my thought was that if anybody in town is going to have a stockpile of fanzines, it's going to be Greg. I know you just popped in, but this is all from a trade I did with a local guy, Greg Harder. Um, and he worked with Comic World here in town, which was also kind of Sticks comic distribution service for, I believe, Canada. I don't know how far into the United States they came, but so he has quite a rich history here in town. And I figured if anybody is going to have a stockpile somewhere of fanzines, it would be Greg. Not much. My next stop is going to be looking at the Comic World website to see what he has for fanzines, because there's a few that I really want to find and try to pick up. But yeah, I mean, I don't see this stuff that often, and when I do see fanzines, it's I see this one all the time. Comic Reader, I see all the time. But that's about it. Besides Comics Journal and stuff, but as far as kind of independent, little smaller fanzines, they just don't show up. And then here's Rocket's Blast and the Comic Collector number 113 rather. We have a small Richard Corbin index in this one. That's why I picked this one out. There's an article about Dell Comics, and then some Williamson Collector, 2 pages. The Richard Corbin index is pretty great for this time. It's really a small list of stuff, but well worth seeing now that we're on our Richard Corbin kick. Another issue of a magazine that I've been looking for forever. Another one that doesn't pop up. I have one other issue of this one, and it is, I think it's issue number 1, and it's a article, an interview with Don Martin, and Don Martin on the front, a Don Martin drawing on the front as well. One of my favorites from the Mad Magazine era. So that was great. Another one that just never pops up. When I entered it in the CLZ, I thought there might only be 2 of them, but it turns out they have 5 listed. The early years of Alan Moore with some illustrations by Peter Bagge, I believe. Yes, there we go. Illustrations by P. Bagge. So that'll be great. Another one that I don't find a lot of, he had a few issues of Nemo, the classic comics library. Issue number 2, issue number 24, and issue number 27. Again, not something I find too often. I enjoy these for the most part, even though it's not necessarily my focus. The completist in me, I have a few already, so when I see them, I now want to buy them. One that I'm really excited about, I only have 1 issue of this as well, and I picked up another 4 from Greg. Comic Art Magazine. When I posted this on one of the Facebook groups, there was some good response. Somebody had said it's one of the best, in their opinion, one of the best comic uh, magazines they've ever read, which excites me a great deal. Uh, this one, there's a few of these issues that come with a little insert, a different insert for a little strip, which I don't quite understand. This one caught my interest because there's a huge article, The Underground Art of Rory Hayes. I've got a few Rory Hayes undergrounds in my collection, but this is great. I know that Fantagraphics did is it Where Demented Wented, I think is what it's called. So I'm sure that this is going to be a bit of history about Rory. as well as some samplings. That San Francisco comic book, that's one of the issues that I do have. Gorvidal is saying, I think the material would be found in Austin and Houston, where I lived when I was younger, but had stopped collecting comics then and didn't visit comic shops. I missed out. Understood. And then 64-page special is saying, ooh, I never see those. I'm assuming you mean this comic art. Like I said, I'm pretty sure I have one single solitary issue in the bins here to my left. Yeah, and a real nice long article about Rory as well in this one. Let's have a look here. So this is issue number 2, winter 2003. M. Todd Hignite, founding editor, publisher. Daniel Zimmer, the designer and publisher. Sarah Rowe Hignite, assistant editor. There's the page there. Gore Vidal. Oh, sorry, I mean architectural foam panels. Jack Cole, gag cartoonist. There we go. Put this back in here. I got a few of these. So that was issue number 2. Issue number 5. They're really heavy duty. Each page, even the front, the covers itself, too, really sturdy. Here's the insert with this one. The one that I have in the bins doesn't have anything stuffed inside. And what do we got in this one? Crockett Johnson in the Purple Crayon, An Afternoon with Kim Deitch, Art Spiegelman in the studio, Don Flowers, Glamour Girls. Oh yes, that's right. Rand Holmes and the Canadian Underground Press. This was the focus for me in this one. Page 62. Let's do a flip through here. And even flipping through this one earlier today. That's an article just meant for me. Canadian Underground. And they reprint or kind of show off some of his Georgia Strait work. And again, the color reproduction on some of those old kind of magazines, underground comics magazines, or just magazines or newspapers rather. Sorry, that's another one that's going to go to my list of things I need to hunt down. Look at this spread of that Rand Holmes work. It's fucking beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. Georgia Strait, and then they also talk about, yeah, here we go, the Vancouver Sun as well. Page after page. The last 2 issues have little chat books. Okay. Last 2 issues, do you know how many issues this went? 64-page special? Because this was another one I tried to enter in my CLZ app, and nothing was really coming up. The listing that I found, I think, had only 2 or 3 issues. There we go. And there's some of the underground work, which I think at this point I've got every single thing listed on this page. Well, maybe not that Dope Comics. That might be the only thing that I don't have. The classic All Canadian Beaver Comics, absolute classic. White Lunch Comics, great one as well. So that's really, really killer. Really looking forward. It's funny, as I go through these, I start thinking of like, oh, which am I going to read first? And every single time there's another one that comes up that I want to read first. This is issue number, what do we got? Issue number 6, spring 2004. Here's the insert there. But it hasn't come out in years. Understood. This one has a big article with Seth, and of course on the cover here is a kind of snapshot of the cityscape that he was building out of cardboard that apparently takes up a good portion of his basement, I think is what he had said when I went to see him give a talk. And a really, really huge article, Seth in the studio. So that'll be great. And then finally for comic art, issue number 7 with Mark Bell on the back, right? There you go. What else do we have in this issue? Let's go to the front. Man, I'm Beat, Harvey Kurtzman's frustrating post-humbug freelance career. Article by Dennis Kitchen. Harvey Kurtzman again by Joey Aniff. The Dutch Underground Press, that was one. The Comics That Time Forgot. Crazy Cats. Rereader's Guide to David Boring. Let's have a look at page 26. Here we go. Tante Lenny and the Dutch Underground Press. There is a comic that I have, Dutch Treat, I think it's called, that focuses on Dutch Underground comics. I'm sure this gentleman is featured in that as well. As far as I know, it was only the one issue. Yeah, these are in immaculate condition. So there we go. There we go. That's it for Comic Art Magazine. Book 2, I have book 1. This is Storm by Don Lawrence and Martin Lodwick from Titan Books. I know Don Lawrence from his stint in Penthouse when he was doing Oh Wicked Wanda, and what was the other one? Oh Wicked Wanda and shit, I don't remember. Anyway, his art is fucking beautiful. I believe there was only these 2 books. You have number 8 on your shelf. Okay. Really, really great to have this. I'd started reading number 1. I didn't make it all the way through. This will give me the incentive to read both back to back. There you go. Can't remember the other strip. Anyway, I'm sure it'll come to me. He had a couple of Catalan. What was the other Catalan here? Yeah, both of those. Okay. Catalan Communications, Belial and Dionet, Exterminator. I don't know the year on this one, but it seems early, where Belial was still very Mobius-like in both kind of line work and coloring. You know, it's hard to separate yourself from that. There's a number of European artists that really do have some similarities. The later stuff that I've read, let's see here. Let's have a look before we go any further with talking a bunch of shit. What do we got? Yeah, 1979 Humanoids, and this English language edition is 1986. First printing May 1986. Looks fucking fantastic though. Looks beautiful. And one that I wasn't familiar with, but when I kind of did a little bit of, there was a few things on his list where for some reason the name jumped out at me, and I did a brief scan online to see if I could find some samples of the interior pages, and this was one of them. Tex Arcana, John Finley, where I had a scan of the art, and it completely amazed me. And I know that I've seen his art elsewhere. I just couldn't tell you right now where exactly that is, but this one looks incredible. And I think that spine just split. Yeah, well, that's what happens with some of these old ones. The glue just gave way on that one there. There you go. Looks amazing. A kind of mystical Western. So speaking of Jodorowsky, we'll see what this one's like. It sure as hell appeals to me, just flipping through the few pages. Tex Arcana. And then on the Tim Vigil kick, again, if it wasn't for trade, I don't know if I would ever go anywhere near something like this, but this is Tim Vigil artworks from 1976 to 1990. And I gotta say, this is Rebel Studios. I gotta say, flipping through this, there is some really amazing pieces in here. He's got that level of detail for sure, but there's also a bit of like this piece. I like this piece quite a bit. Overall, again, is it stuff I would naturally gravitate to? Not necessarily, but it ain't bad. And I think that's a pretty good span of her career to kind of focus on. 1976 to 1990. That's not bad at all. There we go. A couple of books from Tim Truman's Four Winds. We're reaching the end here. The final 3 books. I believe, like the rest of the Four Winds stuff, was this distributed by Eclipse? I don't have my... it doesn't say anything inside. First printing March 1989. Alvar Mayer, Death and Silver. Story Carlos Trio. Illustration Enrique Breccia. Bilal, I can't believe it's been 40 years. I think Tex Arcana appeared in Heavy Metal Magazine. More than likely. That wouldn't surprise me. And maybe that's where I'm remembering it from, Gore Vidal. Now that you've said it, that very well could be. So yeah, Tim Truman's short-lived Four Winds publishing group. And then the other one from Four Winds. This cover I've seen a number of times, and it always reminds me of Nemesis the Warlock. This is Subterra. Barrerio, Dixon, and Alcatina. Another one that the title jumped out at me, and I did a bit of digging online, and as soon as I saw the interiors, it was a no-brainer. Had to happen. Last but not least, not necessarily comic related, but a son of a bitch thick book. Tomorrow and Beyond, masterpieces of science fiction art. And this is just pure eye candy. It's heavy duty, and it's fucking incredible. Every single page, just image after image, really well credited. You can see the names under each piece of art. They have some kind of subheadings as well. So here's the astronauts section, and then which borders on the symbolism section. What do we got? Aliens. We've got humor. We've got other worlds. We've got Futuropolis. This is a beautiful book to flip through. I sent Dr. Monkeybot a message today on Twitter as well, just to kind of say, hey man, out of anybody, I don't know if you know this book, but this seems something that you need to hunt down. We got some barbarians as well. So there we go. That's it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in. It is a mighty, mighty box of really, really killer stuff. And now I'm going to leave you so I can sit and start reading through some of this stuff. That's it. I'm hoping that I can find some more things that Greg is interested in. The more he sends me lists, the more I'm going to want. Happy New Year, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with me. Architectural Foam Panels and Columns, 64-page special. Gore Vidal, really, really great to see you guys. Thank you so much for spending time with me and going through this box of goodies. And we'll talk to you all soon. Later.